So I've been following our guest mainly on Instagram. He's everywhere. And he's got thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of followers. And his name's Rodney Norman, Rodney D. Norman. And I didn't know anything about him. You know, so I'm watching. He's hilarious. He's an older gentleman, Grizzly Adams-like, big old beard, a lot of hair. And he's very philosophical, but very informative, very profound, and very funny. And I just thought he was like this survivalist, this woodsman that lived out in the sticks and just talked shit on the internet, and people followed him because they thought he was funny. I didn't realize, Rodney, you're like a distinguished, successful comedian. And like you've been around for a minute, and this is just part of the gimmick, right?
Yeah, well, successful is a very subjective word.
Well,
yeah, I've been doing comedy for about 24 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And this character, his name is Leonard Bekrunsky, and he is patterned after my alcoholic grandfather, becoming the world's worst life coach.
Yeah, it's hilarious. It's absolutely hilarious. You know, when I found out you were a stand-up comic, I reached out to some of my comic buddies, and they're familiar with you. And I'd like to think that I'm fairly in tune with the comedy world just because I have a lot of friends in the business. I've interviewed them and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I felt horrible. I'd never met you or didn't even know that you were a comic. So do you mind me asking how old you are now?
I am 52. I'll be 53 here in a couple weeks.
Are you really? No, there's no way you're 53 years old.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's exactly right.
That's exactly right. So you started comedy kind of late in your life.
Well, I started in 98. So I was about 28 years old when I started doing comedy.
I've got some clips.
Which is ancient in the comedy world.
Yeah.
Usually if you're not up and running in your early 20s, you're way behind the curve.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is, you know, a lot of these guys start when they're teenagers, you know, at least the old school stories you'd hear, sneaking into the comedy clubs, just trying to, or open mic nights or something like that. All right, I've got a couple of your clips on TikTok. People love you on TikTok. Absolutely love you on TikTok. Here's one of them.
Hey, if anybody hasn't told you today, I just want to stop by and say you're looking pretty freaking awesome. Because you are pretty freaking awesome. So have yourself a pretty freaking awesome day. Okay. That's it. That's all I want to say. Okay. See you around, stuff. Bye.
All right, so this is a character. This is not, because your stand-up, it's very, your cadence and your inflection is that uncomfortable, awkward humor, which I love, by the way. This character is very much like your stand-up.
Yeah, there's a lot of crossover, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I'm just having fun. I just, the goal of comedy is to get people to laugh, but also to kind of take them on a little trip. And that's kind of my goal with this character is that it's very disarming. So it gets you to, drop your critical factor, because half the time you're staring at him going, what the hell is this guy doing? And then all of a sudden, I sneak in a nice little nugget of truth at you and throw you for a little loop.
Would you say you, in the almost 3 decades or over 3 decades of you doing comedy, you found more success on social media than you have in the clubs or in the industry itself?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I got passed over in a lot of trying to get in with clubs and stuff, because they told me I was too old and too weird. And so I just never got in with the clubs all that much. I have a few of them, but not a lot. And then with social media, with the COVID, everybody, poo-poos the COVID thing. It worked out pretty good for me. I don't know what anybody's worried, complaining about.
So a club owner would actually tell you, hey, Rodney, we don't want you performing.
Oh, no, they would just ignore me.
Okay, they just wouldn't return your calls.
Yeah, I just couldn't get. I had I've had places that, we set up auditions, and I went to go do the audition. They basically just said, never mind. They just won't even give me an audition. So, and it's just part of the business. I mean, everybody goes through that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm not unique in that respect. But
And you've always had the same look. You kind of have the crazy hair and the shaggy beard.
I was clean shaven for most of my career. I started growing the hair out because I wanted to do a Santa Claus stand up. I'd written some material as Santa Claus, and I wanted to do it with a real beard. And then once I grew the beard, I was like, "Oh, I like this," and I was just stuck with it. So,
where were you born? Where are you from?
Well, I was born and raised in Utah, a town called Granger, which no longer now exists, which has caused a lot of existential angst when you realize the place you live you were born does not exist anymore.
Yeah, I'm sure. What happened to it? What do you mean it doesn't exist?
It got incorporated into a bigger city, so now it's called West Valley City in Utah. But there was a town called Granger, and that's where I was born.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I grew up in Utah, and then went on in college, did a religious mission. I was in the Marine Corps, and just living life. And then one day, just decided, almost got my finger cut off, doing a handyman business, and thought, this isn't what I wanted to do. And so I wrote a couple jokes and started doing stand up, and started in Kansas City, Missouri.
Just you want an open mic or somebody?
Yeah, I found an open mic and went and did it. I was the only guy there who was a first timer, so they made me go last. And just give you time to really build up your nerves. And got up there, got a couple chuckles, and thought, okay, this is it. This is what I'm doing for the rest of my life.
That's great. Here's another clip from Rodney's TikTok. This stuff is hilarious. I'm addicted to you. Like your social media. Yeah, that's why I've been bothering you to come on the show, because I think you're hilarious. I have so much appreciation for people in this business, especially comics. I've said this a million times over. It is without a doubt, the hardest stage to stand on. It is so intimidating. And for those that do it, my hat's off to you. But what you've created on social media is the dream of what people in the entertainment business die to do, is to have hundreds of thousands of followers, get paid by all these different platforms, and you've created this character. I thought it was real. I thought you're like the Blair Witch Project to me. I thought you were real, So here's another clip from Rodney's TikTok.
Sometimes you end up getting where you want to go and then find out when you get there that you don't want to be where you're at. And then you feel like this is all just a waste of time. But just remember, if you never got there, then you'd always be wanting to get there, and then you don't know you don't want to be there until you get there. So sometimes you just got to go where you don't want to go, just to know that that's not where you want to be. Okay. That was super freaking awesome rest of your day and stuff. Okay, bye.
And you have to understand, like, Rodney's in the middle of nowhere when he does these videos, and he's got this crazy Doc Brown Back to the Future hair just flowing in the wind, and he looks like a homeless guy, and he's just spitting this off. I think people think you're like 90 years old and homeless on the streets and feel bad for you.
Oh yeah, I've had there's all kinds of rumors that were going out there for quite a while. Some that I was homeless. Others that I was a multimillionaire that just retired and living off grid and just decided to start imparting wisdom. I have a few people who actually think that I'm God and that I've come down and start imparting wisdom through social media. I have people who pray to me in my messages on Facebook. It's really strange. But yeah, it's really quite enjoyable, because when my videos really first started kicking, I started getting reached out to by healthcare professionals who were concerned that I was getting the proper medical attention. That was fun. I was like, whoo, yeah.
Nate, got any questions for Rodney, please?
Yes.
Yeah, who do you have any like influences from different comedians, or even just like where you're from? Did like Utah give you any material or anything, or is what is your influences, I guess?
Oh yeah, Utah's probably one of the biggest comedy influences anyone could have. No, a lot of this is basically, like I said, my grandfather. Also, old school comedy. Red Skelton. Um, I used to watch all the roasts. Foster Brooks. If you've ever heard of him, he was one of my favorites when I was a kid. So 'cause he would play this drunk character, and it was so hilarious. And I grew up watching the Carol Burnett show. So Harvey Korman, Tim Conway. I think Tim Conway is probably one of the greatest comedy actors of all time. And it was watching him is where I really understood how to enjoy the pauses, how you can get laughter out of a moment by just holding it, and learning how to hold it and how to be comfortable in the uncomfortableness. And timing, all that stuff. But just a lot of the old school comedy is really where you learn how to do it right. Nowadays, most comics, they're just cheerleaders. They're just they pick a side and go, "Oh, the other side sucks," and "Yay, we believe in you," and that kind of stuff. Which is it's great. They're doing well. They're all making more money than I am, but I'm just trying to create something fun and interesting, and bringing what I've learned, old school comedy, and just kind of bringing it into a modern angle to it.
Is there a comic out, or is there any comics that have seen your stuff on social media, did not know you from, touring or anything like that, and have reached out and just said, "I love what you're doing," knowing that it's all gimmick?
Yeah. I've had a lot who have just been, basically in awe.
Like who?
How are you pulling this off?
Name some names. Like who?
One, I worked with him a couple years ago, is a guy named JP Sears.
Okay.
If you're familiar with him, he started kind of opposite of me. He was started in social media and then transitioned into stand up. And
oh yeah,
I was in stand up, and I kind of went the other direction. And he's been pretty amazed. If you know Chelsea Lynn, the gal that does the Trailer Trash Tammy.
No, I don't know Chelsea Lynn.
Tammy. Yeah, she's been fun, and it's just a lot of my friends are just comics I've known over the years have been. I get messages from them every once in a while. Mostly it's out of jealousy and spite, but because comics, we love each other, but at the same time we root for each other's total devastation and demise.
Is there any touring comic out now, or maybe overly successful, big name sitcom kind of comic that you really like?
I enjoyed Owen Benjamin. It's been fun watching his whole career in self-destruction. Let's see. I love Brian Regan. I think he's probably one of the most. It's a strange thing to me that as big and as successful as he is, he could still walk around and nobody knows who he is. It's weird.
Yeah.
I love Bill Burr. Good dude. Very funny, very talented. David Tell, I think he's probably should be bigger than he is. I mean, he's huge. I mean, people know who he is, but I think he could be even bigger. I think he's incredible talent.
Are there you said before too, like some of these guys and girls are just cheerleaders for whatever side. Do you see, I think in the last 6 years, it's been very difficult for comics to kind of find a groove. You sprinkle in a little cancel culture. Politics have become a major talking point. How do you handle it? This and this and that. And it's tough. Is there anybody that you don't like, that you look at them and go, dude, what are you doing up there? This is just crap. This isn't comedy.
Not that I would be willing to say openly.
Why? I've got no problem calling people out. Rodney, you should have no problem doing it.
I mean, I understand comedy is like you were saying, it's a tough thing. It's a tough business to do this right. And so when you're trying to find your place in it and trying to find your voice and trying to find your audience, sometimes you just kind of stumble into something, and because it's working, you just keep doing it.
Mm.
And so I think there are comics who, you know, you'll write one bit, and all of a sudden that one bit kind of defines your whole act, and you get kind of pigeonholed into that thing, and then you feel like you have to stay there, like you always have to be that kind of comic and be doing that kind of material, and it's great that, you know, you finally found something to hit, but at the same time you get stuck there.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of comics who kind of back themselves into that kind of position where they always feel like they have to be always edgy, always topical, and you're always kind of chasing it, which is great, and you can stay on top of it. But, you know, eventually, I don't know, kind of feels like you're just saying things to be provocative and funny, not really saying what you want to say.
Yeah. My favorite comics are storytellers, you know, guys that get up there. You know, some of my favorites are like Jim Norton, Ian Bagg, Joe Bartlett's really funny, I think. Paul Verzi, Robert Kelly. Steve Byrne is a friend of mine. I think he's overly funny, but they're good storytellers. And I've always been a fan of the storyteller. I don't mind the one-liner jokes. You know, Steve Byrne has got a part of his act where he just does these cheesy pun one-liner jokes, but he's making fun of the fact that they're cheesy one-liner jokes.
Yeah,
you know? But then you take a guy, we were talking, I forget what episode it was, about Mitch Hedberg. And there was, every once in a while, a clip would come up, and you know, this was a clip of when he was on Conan, and we were trying to, Nate and I were going back and forth I said, he was such a genius, obviously dying at a young age, but would his comedy still work today? And Nate, as much as he appreciates Mitch's comedy, he says, I think that he might have been a little overrated because he died. Would you agree with that or no?
I think there's some validity to that. But at the same time, he really was such a unique individual. I got to work with him.
Oh, really?
And it was a weird deal because I knew that this guy was a genius. And here he was in Salt Lake. It was a Sunday night. There was only about, you know, in a club that seats 300, there was only about 80 people there. And we could only get him for the one night. You know, it was just kind of, I think he'd been in Denver the weekend before. And so he picked up this one date on his way to somewhere else. And so we were lucky to get him. And he was so funny. But even that audience, a lot of them were there just because we were open on a Sunday night. They didn't really care who it was. Mm. And, you know, it's just kind of surreal sitting there going, yeah, you know, this guy's something special, and yet here he is. You know, it's like one of those big name bands go and play in the subway, and everybody just ignores them, even though they're, you know, it's this incredible high priced talent. You're ignoring them. That's kind of what it felt like, you know, being there. But I do think that there is some validity to that idea that, you know, we kind of fall in love. Well, it's like, you know, Bill Hicks. He was ahead of his time, but at the same time, you go and watch it. He was okay.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't fall over myself. He was a good comic, but I don't think he's, you know, everybody. Yeah, I think we do that with almost everybody.
Mm-hmm. One of Mitch's jokes in this clip was, you know, and it's just the way he delivered it, because he was so, you know, fucked up on drugs, right? So it's like,
oh yeah,
you know, you're just wondering, is it real? Is it not real? And I know he and Craig Gass were roommates for years, you know. So, and I know Craig pretty well, and so you know, he says, are hippopotamuses just cool hippopotamuses? Like that's like
Yeah, so dumb.
like they should make fajita cologne because everybody likes fajitas and everybody likes the smell of fajitas. So why not smell like fajitas as cologne? It's just so funny, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, Brandon didn't quite get it, but you know that's okay. Brandon's like 8 years old, so
I'm a little older than that, but you know, he's just a little before me.
you got a question for Rodney, Brandon?
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen this show, but I think you'd fit good as a character in there, Rick and Morty. Have you ever thought about like writing for any kind of shows like that, or you know, like cartoons, writing for them?
No, I haven't really thought about writing for cartoons. Yeah, but no, I am familiar with Rick and Morty, and I've had a lot of people who have suggested I be a character in that universe.
Yeah,
which would be fun. But no, I would certainly welcome it. No, I haven't really pursued writing for anyone else yet.
What about TV? What about TV or movies? Were you ever up for a big part and lost it, and who'd you lose it to?
No, I just played. There's this group that's making a movie down in Florida called Jeebus.
Mm-hmm.
It's a modern telling of the story of Jesus, but it's Jeebus, and it's a comedy, and it's ridiculous. It's very irreverent, and I was down there doing shows, and they came to one of my shows and said, "Hey, we're making this movie." They told me about it, and I was like, "That sounds absolutely ridiculously stupid." And then they said, "We want you to play God," and I was like, "Wow, that sounds like a brilliant movie." And it's all green screen, so they just we filmed it all in like 6 hours. I went and sat in front of a green screen one day, and they just said, "Here, ask me questions," and I just answered it as my character. You know, the idea is Leonard as God.
Uh-huh.
And so that's we play, and I don't know how they're gonna edit it out or how they're gonna use it, but that's gonna be out sometime. I think the first of the year.
It's just crazy to me. You've been doing this for 30 years. You just, you know, within the past couple years, got this crazy social media success, but before that, you know, doing the clubs that would accept you, you're not able to tour around the country because some of the clubs don't want you because you're quote unquote weird, and you stuck with it. You never got discouraged. You never made it to that upper tier of in a sitcom, which back in the day, you know, it was Comedy Store to Carson and then sitcom. Now it's different because you have all these streaming services. And you've just been content with what you've been doing all this time. And now is your time because of social media, which, you know, your demographic is perfect for this because the younger generation loves the older generation being goofy. It's funny.
Yes, they do. Yeah, I think it comes down to just the fact that you just believe in yourself, and you just, you know, I knew that when I got on stage in front of any audience that I could do well. I knew what I was capable of doing. And for whatever reasons, politics or whatever have you, that I was getting passed over for things, I never took it personally. I just thought, okay. I mean, look, there's sometimes people don't want to take you on tour with them because you're funnier than they are. Mm-hmm. There's times where people don't like you just because they find out that you're different than them politically, and so they don't want anything to do with you. I've had people who didn't want to book me because they found out that I grew up in Utah. I mean, it's just, you know, people are just not going to like you for whatever other reasons. I just never took it personally. I just thought, I know I'm funny. I enjoy doing this. I'm just going to keep doing it. I mean, I could do anything else and make little to no money, or I could do something I enjoy and make even less money, but I'm having fun. You know?
It's such a great way to look at it. God almighty. I need to adopt that outlook on life. Let me play another clip from your TikTok here. Hold on.
You should stop worrying about stuff, and instead of worrying about stuff, you should just do stuff. Because while you're doing stuff, you're not worrying about stuff because you're focused on doing stuff. So go do some stuff instead of worrying about stuff. while you're doing the stuff, you'll actually get something accomplished. Because worrying about stuff doesn't accomplish anything except for you just get all worried and hot and bothered. So stop doing that stuff and do the other stuff. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye. I just find that I love that humor. I love that style of comedy. When did you start doing this character?
Well, I've been doing them off and on in my act. I had one time I did this show where I had to get up early that morning, drive through a snowstorm, and get to this gig with like just barely a half hour before we got on stage, and I was tired. And it was just that point where you're just so tired and delirious, and then you're wore out because we're driving in the snow, and at any point in time we could have slid off the road and died. So you have that pressure, and then I get this gig. I was tired, and I was just like, screw it. So I just decided I would do the entire show as my drunk grandfather, and it went really well because slower and just having out of my mind half the time, and just had a lot of fun with it. So I played with it over the years, and then finally one day, several years ago, I was watching a friend of mine on Instagram who's one of these life coaches, the gurus, and he's a good-looking dude. He's he's got a nice fit body, he's got the perfect tan, beautiful wife, big house, fancy cars, and he's always giving people life advice. And he's sitting there, and he's kind of leaning against this hallway wall, and he goes, "Hey, do you feel like you need to have permission from someone to be happy and successful? Well, I'm here to give you that permission today. You deserve to be happy and successful." And it just started making me laugh. I was like, what he's saying makes, he's being nice. He's trying to help, but it was just so ridiculous. And then I thought, that's it. My drunk grandfather is the world's worst life coach. And then once I had that thought, then I started making videos as the life coach. And I did it for a little while. They did okay. And then kind of put it to rest for a bit. And then when COVID hit, I thought, well, I had nothing else to do. So I just started doing more of them. And by that point in time, the hair was in more, the beard was crazier. And then when I started doing them, it just really kind of found the character and really defined him, and just started having fun with it. And most of the time, almost all the videos are done in one take. It's all improv. I just kind of come up with an inkling of an idea, turn on the camera, and just go for it. A lot of times I'll get done and post the video and then forgot what I even said.
I almost wished I didn't find out that you were normal. Like, I think it's almost better for, and if I were to say anything to you, not like you need advice from me, but, this character that you've created with a different name other than your name, Rodney D. Norman, is that it should have its own Instagram account so people don't know that's you. You want, like, Larry the Cable Guy's a gimmick. Like, I did radio with Larry for years in Orlando, and he was in the studio right next to me. We would have Chick-fil-A for breakfast every day for years and blah, blah, blah. And Larry's a gimmick. He's the blueprint of living the gimmick, because he doesn't normally talk like that. I mean, that's not how he originally talked, but he's adopted this character of Larry the Cable Guy. And it goes back to the stuff he used to do, on all radio. What is this, Russia? And he found a gimmick, So it's really clever. Are you married, or have you ever been married?
Yes, I'm married. We're about to celebrate 30 years.
Wow.
September. Yeah, she's been everything. Her name is Teresa, and she's really the reason I even have a career, because when we first started dating, I told her, I said, well, I have these ambitions to be an actor and all this stuff. And so life isn't going to be easy, and I'll probably not be successful at it because I look weird. And she was all in, and she was the one who really pushed me to do stand-up and got me on stage for the first time. She was the one who's always just kept pushing me to do it. And over the years, why I've told her, hey, I'm going to drive 785 miles. I'll be gone for 3 days to go do a gig to make $100. she's like, oh, okay. You know,
What does she do?
she has we have a business where we look at houses for mortgage companies. It's just kind of a weird niche business no one's ever heard of.
Yeah, but it pays the bills, so you can go out there and live the dream, which is fantastic.
Basically, I'm a kept man. That's how it's worked out.
You've done something. You know, I know I played some audio from your TikTok, but if you go to Rodney's YouTube page, or you just Google him, and you'll see some of his stand-up video. You know, I've always preached in the radio business and there's actually a book called The Power of Silence, but the art of silence. Like, I am a firm believer that the loudest noise in the room is nothing. And if you can learn how to properly place silence into your conversations and your inflection, you can become an extremely powerful person. And that's for anything: comedy, entertaining, radio, television, negotiating, blah, blah, blah. You've mastered that art to the point where one of these clips I saw, you didn't say a fucking thing for like 6 minutes, and you were just drinking a bottle of water. And I'm going, this guy's brilliant, absolutely brilliant, by the uncomfortable, awkward silence that you brought to that stage.
Yeah, there's a lot of psychology involved in anything performance wise, and even more so in comedy. And it's one of the things that people have overlooked. You know, all of communication, only about 30% of it is through our words. That other 70%, there's, you know, your voice inflections, your body, all of these things that are going on. There's all this communication that's taking place subconsciously. And when you learn to start playing in that area, it just opens up everything. And that's really it's coming down to is, you know, when you get on stage, you need to grab their attention. You need to grab the control of the room. And the one thing that I've seen is that the greatest communicators could do that without saying a word. And when you figure that out, it's amazing. And the funniest thing to me is, you know, as a comic, silence is deadly because you think, you know, that's where they're going to start heckling you. That's when they're going to, you know, you're going to lose them because you're not saying anything. But if you can hold them and get them in silence, then you've got them completely, and they're going to go wherever you want to take them.
Yeah, well, they say that about radio too. You know, the old dead air. It can't be dead air. So, you know, you get people that in the industry just talk so fast, and they talk over each other, and they try to finish sentences, and they don't let the conversation breathe, which is a lost art form of storytelling, is to let it breathe. Calm down. Stop being in such a fucking rush. Relax, you know, and you're great at it. You know, I think you're a fantastic comic. I really do. Nate, you have another question for Rodney?
Yeah, I was actually. Oh, I was going to ask about your videos, and you had already answered that. But how did you get on the different social media platforms? Because I'm 38, and I felt kind of like TikTok had passed me. What inspired you to get on TikTok and all the different social media outlets?
Well,
was it your wife, or what? Did you have other influences?
Well, I got on TikTok by accident because I have a friend who I've known since high school, and you know, I've watched him and his children grow up over the years. And he has a daughter who is into the whole cosplay thing. And so when TikTok was really starting to take off, a lot of cosplay people were making videos about all their different costumes and stuff. And she was doing this, and she had done this montage of Disney princesses. It was, you know, pretty interesting. So he had posted the video on Facebook. And so I went to just be supportive. I went to watch the video, and it took me to TikTok. And then it said, do you want to check in with Facebook? I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. Next thing I know, they set up a TikTok account for me. And I didn't know what to do with this thing. And so I started watching, you know, I was watching her videos. And then, of course, it starts showing you all these other weirdos. And mostly it was just dancing, you know, little girls dancing, which it was like, eh. My daughter was into dance, and I used to have to go sit through dance recitals. And I was like, why did they turn this into an app? You know what I mean?
How many kids? How many kids do you have?
We have four boys and a girl.
Are they in the business at all?
No. Two of my boys and my daughter have done stand up some, but none of them have pursued it. They all want to. They've all done some aspects of it, photography and gotten into film editing. And I've got one son who's a brilliant voiceover kind of person. I can't get him to actually he does incredible voices, and I can't get him to do anything with it. It drives me nuts. He's more talented than I am, and I can't get him to do anything with it.
You got to get him set up. You got to introduce him to somebody, and then start showing him paydays. Like voiceover people make buku bucks, ridiculous amounts of money.
Yeah, that's. But trying to get him into it, but yeah, it's been fun. It's fun watching them.
So I'm looking at your backdrop. I see you're an Elvis fan. You know how to play the acoustic guitar. You're a Star Wars fan. So am I. And you only get gas from the old 76 gas stations.
Yeah. Well, my grandfather, my other grandfather, my dad's dad, he owned a Union 76 gas station when I was a kid. And I also grew up building race cars. And so the race car rent number was 76 through most of my childhood. And so I've just always had kind of a fondness for that, the Union 76 thing, though. So that's why I got one.
Who's your favorite Star Wars character?
Han Solo.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Even my dog likes Han Solo.
Why Han?
I just like that whole independent, he really wasn't fighting for the rebellion. He was just fighting for himself. He was just, it was just like, hey, whatever. He was an opportunist. I was like, I like the anarchy.
Were you sad when he got killed? When Kylo killed him?
Yeah, but at the same time, I was like, this fits for the story.
Yeah, you could see it, especially in his interviews. He's like, just get me out of this franchise.
Yeah, you could tell he was phoning it in.
Yeah, must be hell to have the biggest franchise in movie history on your resume, and you get residual checks till you're dead, and thereafter. I know it's just such a pain in the ass, Harrison. Sorry to bother you.
Oh dear.
I know, really. Brandon, do you have any more questions for Rodney before we let him go?
Yeah. Is there like a place, like a comedy club you'd want to go to that you haven't been, or a place that you love doing comedy? Like if there's an opportunity, like, hey, I want to go here.
Oh, I love doing anywhere I can get two people to stop and stare at me, I'll do comedy. I love it. But no, I'd love to get to actually play the Comedy Store sometime.
Wow.
I haven't got to do that, and of course the Cellar in New York.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to play there, but. No, I just I just love being in front of any audience, American Legions, bowling alleys.
I saw David Allen Greer at the Cellar in New York. And I went just because a buddy of mine hooked it up with free tickets, and we went in. And I was never a big David Allen Greer fan on television. But his stand-up was really good that I remember. This was years and years ago.
Yeah.
And
yeah, he's really one of those that should be bigger than he is. I agree. And he's very funny. And
I've never been to the Comedy Store, but I'm going to be out in LA here in the next couple months, and I'm going to make it a point to go out there, just to walk on the same floor that legends walked on and currently walk on.
Yeah.
Have you seen the documentary on the Comedy Store?
I've watched some of it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's fascinating. I mean, just to think, the Richard Pryors and the Eddie Murphys and the Lettermans before they were Lettermans, all these people before they were, somebody.
Yeah. When they were the doorman, Sam Kinison was a doorman for a long time. And
yeah. And
help bus tables or help seat people or, all that, those weird things. Yeah. It's just such a great history.
And the whole story with the Rogan and the Mencia and being banned and him doing his podcast before his podcast was his podcast upstairs, and just everything about it is just so cool.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. I love stuff like that. All right, Nate, you got anything for Rodney before we let him go?
How long did it take to grow your beard out?
I was completely clean shaven and had very short hair. The last time was in November of 19. So about 3 years.
Do you have a criminal record at all, by any chance?
No, I got arrested for changing my tire on the interstate in Missouri once.
Why did you get arrested for doing that?
He thought I was stealing it because I broke down the night before. My van, I got a flat tire, but I didn't have a tire to change it out. So I came back the next day with my other car to get the tire. So I was going to get the tire, take it in, get it fixed, get a new tire put on it, pick up my wife, then go back and pick up the van. But while I was there getting the tire off of the van, a cop shows up and he's like, "What are you doing?" I'm going, "Well, I was trying to explain to him." He says, "Well, how did both these cars get here?" And so I said, "Well, this one I came here yesterday, and this is the other car." He says, "Well, I don't believe you." And so he arrested me and put me in the car. He says, "Well, we're going to take you to the station till we figure this out." And I'm going, "I can just hand you the registration of both vehicles." And he wouldn't listen to me. So I had my wife go get the registration. It was quite ridiculous.
Does your wife prefer you with beard or without?
She doesn't care. She likes it either way.
Oh, such a cool wife.
She's awesome. She's amazing.
RodneyNorman.com is his website, but you can find him on all the social media platforms. If you're not familiar with Rodney's stuff, especially the character, you've got to follow, support. He's such a hilarious guy. So I'm glad we got to spend some time together and meet, and maybe we can get you to Atlanta. Have you ever performed in Atlanta before?
I have not. I would love to, though.
All
yes.
Right. Well, man, let me get on the horn, and that's one of the things that as we grow this podcast thingy ding that we're doing, to come up with certain events, and Night of Comedy is one of the events that I want to do.
Sweet.
So I think we should put Rodney Norman on that bill and get him to Atlanta for the first time ever. People can see Rodney Norman in Atlanta for the BS Presents. If that happens, I got to make it happen first. So
that would be delightful.
And you said your talent fee is $100, correct? And you'll take a cab here. Am I understanding?
I have to drive at least 780 miles to get there.
Okay.
The accommodations are just enough money to pay for half of a hotel room.
I'm sure Jamie Bendel can take care of that, Nate, right?
Yeah, I think so. You might get a big piece of pie too.
Yeah, a big piece of pie and an extra meal at the diner next door. All right, Rodney, thanks so much for your time. Best of luck to you, and we'll talk soon, okay?
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Bye-bye.
Have an awesome day.
Bye.